Hello everyone and welcome to another video. So for today's video we're going to be continuing my 60th anniversary series of TV story rankings with a ranking of every 8th and ninth Doctor TV story, from the TV movie to Bad Wolf / The Parting of the Ways. That's right, we'll be covering 2 Doctors this time, as obviously neither 8 nor 9 had very long tenures on the main TV show. So without further ado, let's get started. Right, so here's the tier list we're going to be using. So as I said earlier, this is going to be a pretty strange TV story ranking video today, because obviously we're going to have to rank 2 Doctor's eras. Obviously that's mostly because the 8th and ninth Doctors, neither of them really had very long tenures on TV. Especially the 8th Doctor, poor old Paul McGann. Yeah, so we'll have to start with the TV movie first, which I'm going to put in, I'll say great. I think that this is a good attempt at trying to bring the show back. I do kind of question whether it was necessarily a good idea to kind of bear in mind that the TV movie was trying to introduce the show to a mostly new American audience. I do question why they decided to have so many continuity references as they did, and not really kind of take much time to really explore what exactly, each of them were and try and explain them to a new audience and everything. Yeah, but beyond that, I think it's a very action-packed, thrilling story. Would have quite liked to have seen it led to a series, if nothing else, just out of curiosity. Yeah, because I think it would have, it would have been a nice curiosity anyway to see what kind of TV show we would have ended up with, if if this had led to a series, what kind of slightly more American-led Doctor Who show, like what that would be like and etc. But yeah, it's a shame that it wasn't as successful as they wanted it to be in America. But yeah, I think it kept the show alive for another 9 years, until the show obviously came back properly with the first Russell T Davies era and Christopher Eccleston as a ninth Doctor, which we're about to get into now, really. So that's for the TV movie. I should also say everyone is brilliant in this. Like, all the cast are great, especially Paul McGann. Would have loved to have seen more of the 8th Doctor, but I think the 8th Doctor ultimately has had a good, it worked out for the best for him ultimately, because he's had various comics, books, audios, just all sorts of expanded media galore, really, since the TV movie came out. And yeah, I think it's worked out for the best for him, because it's given Paul McGann the chance to really develop his Doctor over this very long period of time, like over, well, nearly 30 years now, really. And yeah, I feel like the 8th Doctor's just grown and grown and matured and developed so much. And yeah, it's just a shame that the TV movie didn't lead to anything, but as I say, at least it kept the show going for another near decade. So yeah, that is definitely this time that for the 1996 TV movie. Right, so we start the new series now, with the Christopher Eccleston era, Series 1. So we start things off with Rose, the episode Rose. I'm going to put this in good. I think it's a good reintroduction for the show, for the Doctor, and just the whole kind of dynamic, just the show's formula, as it were. It's a good modernisation for the 2000s, for the 21st century. It's not like, I wouldn't say it's the greatest Doctor Who story, but it doesn't really need to be honest. It's purely about, just, as I say, reintroducing the show, just introducing it to a whole new generation, whole new audience, and just showing how how great Doctor Who can be, basically, to, as I say, a whole new generation. I find it a bit strange that the Autons kind of like reappear in this but are not actually called the Autons. But I get that Russell T Davies was probably thinking, kind of just make it as much of a introduction for, kind of take the whole kind of more leaning into continuity aspects thing out and lean more into just um, introducing everything to a new generation. I think Chris Eccleston does a great job. His Ninth Doctor is instantly extremely likable. He's one of my favourite Doctors, and yeah, Billy Piper's Rose. They instantly just the two of them together, the Doctor and Rose, just hit it off immediately with each other, and yeah, you can tell that they've got great chemistry with each other, and yeah, it's a great introduction for reintroduction for Doctor Who, and yeah, that's all it was. That feels like all it really needs to do. Essentially, it's perhaps one of the best jumping on points for any person who is new to the world of Doctor Who, I would say. Then we've got the End of the World. Again, I'm going to put this in good. It's again, it's nothing too special, but it's just about kind of, Rose's first trip in a TARDIS, and by extension, the modern audience's first trip in a TARDIS as well. And it's just, yeah, it's your kind of, it's just about showing, the classic kind of like Doctor Who alien races, but with a more 21st century sort of like making it more realistic, I suppose, what I'm trying to get at, and not just being about, men in rubber monster suits and stuff like that, even though, classic series wasn't really always like that, but that's a cliche that people often have viewed a classic series with, that, it was very cheap looking, but as I say, as a fan of the classic series, I wouldn't really say it is, but not all the time. But yeah, it's just about just introducing the show to a new audience and just showing that audience what the show can do, and kind of how, there are no limits in terms of the stories that can be told, in a way, because obviously this is all about the end of the world, the end of the planet Earth, and yeah, it's kind of like a backdrop anyway, and then obviously you've got that stuff going on with Lady Cassandra and the robot spiders and everything, but yeah, I'd say it's a good, again, it's just a good story. It's just about just introducing, I keep saying this all the time, but just introducing the show and telling new viewers what Doctor Who is like, what it's about, etc. So then we come to the Unquiet Dead. I'm going to put this in great or good. I'll say good actually as well, because, well, again, it's not like a masterpiece. I wouldn't say it's a masterpiece of a Doctor Who episode, but it's, again, just about, like, it's the first trip to the past for Rose, and therefore for the audience, and it's what I feel like the first Russell T Davies era was very good at, was taking historical figures that most of the British public kind of knew about, in this case Charles Dickens, and just kind of, it's not like, yeah, it's about going into history and stuff, but it's also about kind of it's sort of gimmicky thing, but it works well. It's not like just a silly gimmick sort of thing. It's a good gimmick, if anything. And also the Gelf, a very interesting villain or monster, and the fact that they are like gas creatures, and how that ties into Victorian the Victorian era, and because all that was about like gas and stuff. It's it's just great. It makes it just ties in very well. Um, I just feel like it's not the greatest historical outing for the first Russell T Davies era, or indeed for the show as a whole, but it doesn't need to be. It's just about showing a new audience again, about going to the past and showing how the Doctor can meet these famous people from Earth's history and stuff like that. And it does a very good job of that. It's a very spooky sort of story. I can instantly tell that Mark Gatiss has written this. Um, it's very solid outing, really. Then we get to the first two-parter, Aliens of London / World War Three. I think I'm going to put this in great. To some people that might be controversial, I don't know, because I know initially when it first came out, some more sort of classic series fans didn't like the whole farting aliens sort of concept. But I think, to be honest, if you actually look beyond that, the Slitheen are great monster, really, and this two-parter is, again, so action-packed and thrilling, and got a lot going on, and it's about sort of just grounding it. Again, it's very grounded, and the fact that a lot of it is set in 10 Downing Street, and it's just about making the show grounded and relatable to a modern audience, and it's something that Russell T Davies always did very well, in my opinion, and I feel like this is a classic example of that. And it's just brilliant from start to finish, and I really do think that the whole people having a go at it for the whole Slitheen farting sort of thing, I get it, but at the same time, it's very 2000s, and it was made in the 2000s, and also I feel like if that's the only complaint you've got against a story or an episode or two episodes in this case, I feel like that's kind of, dare I say, clutching at straws a bit, really, just kind of nitpicking. Maybe some of you will strongly disagree with that and tell me how wrong I am in the comments, but that's how I feel about it. I get it. I get the I get why some people aren't on board with that, but again, it's just about, it also just helps to to kind of to make the show likable to young kids again, because what do kids like laughing about a lot? Farting. So yeah. Then we next come to Dalek. I mean, how can this be anywhere but GOAT, really? I mean, it's just stellar, absolutely stellar from start to finish, and it's a very you really get this sense of just how different the Doctor is from how they were in the classic series, because the Ninth Doctor really has this very damaged and very damaged sort of like trauma left over from fighting the Time War, and just Chris Eccleston's just on top form here. I think this is his best performance as a Doctor. Not that he doesn't give his all in all 13 episodes of his tenure, because he absolutely does, but especially in Dalek, I feel, especially in all 3 of his episodes with the Daleks, he is just the best Doctor to go against them, because he really just cannot stand to even look at one, and he really loses his cool, and it's just amazing to see a character like the Doctor go through that, especially when you look back to the classic series, where I'm not saying like none of the classic Doctors went through something a bit similar, like Peter Davison would kind of like lose control of the situation quite a bit, but this feels like the next logical step from that, and it's like a real step up from that. And yeah, it's just such a dramatic, very emotionally charged episode, but how can you not love something as brilliant as that? Yeah, it deserves all the praise it gets, and even now, nearly 20 years later, it still stands up really well, and it's just a perfect, again, reintroduction for a whole new generation to the Daleks. And yeah, it just shows how deadly even a single Dalek can be, with, just this Dalek wiping out an entire base, pretty much. Yeah, it just shows that you do not mess with the Daleks. And as I say, Chris Eccleston has just given probably the best material that I think any Doctor could be given, in a Dalek episode anyway. And yeah, it's just perfection. Then we get on to the long game. I'm gonna put this in. We are gonna have to put something in awful, so I'll probably put the long game in awful, because yeah, it's just, well, I wouldn't really say it's that awful, but it's a real step down from like Dalek and most of series 1 up until this point, really. It's one of the few duds, I think, in the whole Russell T Davies era, or the first Russell T Davies era, I should say. Yeah, it's just, it's not like it hasn't got any interesting ideas. It has got a few, and the whole mind spike, whatever it is, concept is really like a sort of like chilling commentary on how far the likes of plastic surgery can go and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a pretty throwaway episode. It's not like it's terrible. It's not one of the worst Doctor stories ever made, but it's just a big step down from Dalek and from a lot of Series 1. Simon Pegg is good as the editor, but there's only, I just feel like all this really does is just set up for the finale, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but yeah, it's just there ultimately. And then we've got Father's Day. Gonna put this in good. And yeah, well, again, it's not quite as emotionally charged as Dalek was, but it's still quite emotional episode. Yeah, just the whole fact of Rose wanting to go back in time to see her dead dad. I mean, it feels very relatable, because it's like if you were in that kind of situation, where you'd lost a friend or a loved one or whatever, and you were given the chance to be able to go back in time and meet them and talk to them, even just for a little bit. I think it'd be very difficult for anybody to say no to that. I kind of get why the Doctor gets so fed up and gets so annoyed with Rose, and initially thinks that it was all part of some great big scheme on her part. And I think he's kind of justified in doing that, but also at the same time, like I say, if you give someone a time machine and say, oh, you can go back and see someone who you knew who has died, who wouldn't make that? Who wouldn't decide to go and do that? But yeah, it's a great episode. As I say, quite emotional, and yeah, it really is quite. It's got quite a bittersweet ending, because obviously it's not the Doctor or Rose who saves the day. It's ultimately Pete Tyler, who saves the day by, getting himself killed again, so as to fix the timeline and get rid of the Reapers. And yeah, but at least Rose still gets to have a bit of time talking to him and getting to know him. And yeah, then we get on to the Empty Child / the Doctor Dancers again. Goat. I mean, the exact same reasons as, well, not the exact same reasons as Dalek, but similar sort of reasons in that it deserves the praise that it always gets. And I mean, the fact that this was kind of like one of those episodes which led to kids on the playground going, "Are you my mummy?" and stuff like that is great. It just shows how much of an impact it had, this two-parter had. And yeah, Stephen Moffat has a great first story here, and it's just brilliant writing, really. Captain Jack gets introduced, and you can say whatever you want about the whole behind the scenes stuff, but he's a very quite likeable character, really. And even if he does try to con the Doctor and Rose initially, the Empty Child himself as a, not really a monster, but you know what I mean, sort of like, yeah. I think he is great because it's taking something ordinary, something everyday, well, not as everyday with a gas mask, but like something that, if you saw a picture of, you'd know instantly what it was. Like, people would say, "Oh, that's a gas mask." It's taken something like that and just making it really creepy, like even creepier. That's something that Doctor Who has done very well before this, and will continue to do so, like after this as well. And yeah, it's just a classic Doctor Who thing to do, and it always pretty much works well. And I think this is one of the best examples of that. And yeah, it's just, again, just superb. And then we'll get on to Boomtown, which I'm going to put in great. Again, I think if you'd have asked people at the time this first aired what they thought of me putting it this high, I feel like people would not have agreed with it. But I feel like Boomtown has gained a bit more of a better reputation since then. And yeah, I think it's a good kind of character piece, really. That it's not trying to be great big loud bombastic sort of episode. It's just trying to be much more insular and much more is trying to be much more thought-provoking, essentially, and questioning whether the Doctor is always in the right, in a way, with the whole him trying to take Margaret back to Raxcolica Falpatorius, but then she, there's that great scene where she looks each one of the Doctor and his companions in the eye and says, "Could you actually do it? Could you?" Because they will be sending her back to her death, and that's a great, powerful moment. The restaurant scene with her and the Doctor is brilliant as well, because again, it's just so. It's just about providing food for thought for the audience and showing that the Doctor as a character is not all black and white, and there's much more of a moral sort of grey area to him at times, especially with this Ninth Doctor anyway. And it's just really intriguing sort of episode, and also it a bit of it is quite funny, with the whole when they're all chasing Margaret and trying to catch her, and she's trying to run away, and it's quite funny in that respect, and some great banter between the Doctor and his companions, and yeah, it just makes for a thoroughly entertaining episode. And yeah, I really do not think that it deserves the extremely negative reception it had, and probably still does have for some people. If you disagree with that, that's fine, as I say, but yeah, I think it is a really, really good episode. And then lastly, we're on to Bad Wolf / Departing of the Ways. Another goat. I mean, again, this is just all three of these that I've put in goat are not going to be surprising to anyone in the slightest. I mean, it's the three stories that you always hear a lot of praise for, but rightly so, especially Bad Wolf and Parting of the Ways, because it's just almost the perfect final outing for a Doctor, really. I would say only the likes of the Caves of Androzani and the War Games could really come close to beating it, and possibly do slightly beat it, ever so, just by a small little fraction. Yeah, it's brilliantly emotionally charged again. When the Ninth Doctor sees Rose seemingly get killed by the android, you can tell just how he just immediately becomes so closed off and so just bubbling with rage, but internalizing it, and then he just, he fights back against the system, and yeah, then we find out that the Daleks are behind it all, and again, that leads to some great emotionally charged moments for the Ninth Doctor, and yeah, they've got a great back and forth between the Doctor and the Dalek Emperor, and then Rose coming in to save the day, absorbing the time vortex. Yeah, it's a brilliant sort of moment. It's very in keeping with the whole first Russell T Davies era, but yeah, that's in a good way. I get why some people think the whole game shows aspect is a bit dated now, but at the same time, again, this was made in 2005, or broadcast in 2005 anyway, and so, how can they not have something that was at the time anyway very modern, very contemporary, and I feel like it is taking something that is relatable to the audience and is turning it on its head and twisting it and in a really dark way, and showing what would happen if in 1,000 or so years, if we kept having these shows, which are still going on to this day, and it was about if they kept getting worse and worse and more shocking. Yeah, it's a brilliant sort of commentary again, and yeah, I've just realised we haven't got anything for the meh category, so I'll say I might have to put one of the ones I put in good in meh. So, I'll probably put Rose or the End of the World. Actually, no. I don't know now. No, I'll put the long game in meh, because it's not a brilliant episode, but I wouldn't say it's awful. So, yeah, I feel a lot more comfortable with that placement, I think. Yeah, that's that really. But anyway, there's my ranking of every 8th and 9th Doctor TV story. But what do you think? Do you agree with my ranking or not? And would you rank anything differently? Please let me know in the comments section below. Anyway, so thanks for watching, hope you liked it. Please don't forget to press that subscribe button below, as well as press the bell icon at the side of it, so that you'll stay notified of when all my new videos come out. This channel currently has 1,322 subscribers as of the time of writing and recording this video. But if we can get to 2,500 by the end of this year, then I will do another Q&A where you can ask me whatever questions you want. Just keep them polite, please. Also, please rate and comment below your thoughts on all of this, and I shall see you all in another video. So, until next time, bye bye!